Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our fourth and final session in our High Touch, High Tech series. My name is Meaghan Stovel McKnight, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation. Thank you for joining us for another great conversation with three leading scientists in the field of cancer research. Today's topic is about leveraging big data to fuel the future of cancer discovery and care. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are changing the face of healthcare in so many ways. It is helping to identify meaningful relationships from vast amounts of data, enabling us to tackle complex problems that would be difficult and inefficient to address alone. It is not only enabling earlier diagnosis, but actually helping scientists to predict the behavior of cancer cells, supporting our efforts to stay one step ahead of cancer. It is enabling better patient monitoring through wearable devices and even extends to the development of new and innovative therapies for patients. And it is enabling the clinicians and scientists of the Princess Margaret to create a continuous learning system where a massive database we've built as Canada's most comprehensive cancer center has the potential to truly accelerate breakthroughs in cancer research and care. And it is all very exciting stuff. In our Future Forward webinar series last summer, we started to explore how Princess Margaret is using big data and artificial intelligence. And today we're bringing back Dr. Benjamin Haibe-Kains, along with Dr. Lillian Su and Dr. Linda Penn to learn more about this very exciting area of research. Now, before I welcome our panelists, a reminder, we will have time for audience question and answer towards the end of the program, and we would love to hear from you. You can submit your questions throughout the session using Slido. The link to submit questions can be found in the YouTube description below. I would like to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Benjamin Haibe-Kains. Dr. Haibe-Kains is a senior scientist and scientific lead of the data science program at Princess Margaret Cancer Center. He is also an associate professor in the medical biophysics and computer science departments of the University of Toronto. Ben earned his PhD in bioinformatics at the Université Libre de Bruxelles and completed his postdoctoral fellowship at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and Harvard School of Public Health, while being supported by a Fulbright Award. He currently runs the Bioinformatics and Computational Genomics Laboratory at the Princess Margaret. In this role, he and his team are using large data sets of genomic, pharmacological, and radiomic information to help predictive models of therapy, response, and survival. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Our second panelist is Dr. Linda Penn. Dr. Linda Penn is senior scientist at Princess Margaret Cancer Center and a professor in the medical biophysics department at the University of Toronto. She is also the inaugural director of University Health Network's Office of Research Trainees. Linda serves as a scientific advisor on several national and international review panels and on several journal editorial boards, including as a senior editor of cancer research. She has been honored with several distinctions and awards, the most recent being an honorary doctorate degree from Linköping University in Sweden. Linda completed her PhD at the University of Toronto and Hospital for Sick Children, focusing on interferon as an antiviral. She then pursued her postdoctoral fellowship at the Imperial Cancer Research Fund in London, UK, to study the MYC oncogene in cancer. Upon moving back to cancer, she established her lab with a focus on the regulation and function of MYC in cancer, and then added a second focus to the lab on evaluating the role of statin drugs as anti-cancer agents. Welcome, Linda.
Thanks very much, Meaghan.
And our third and final panelist is Dr. Lillian Su. Dr. Su is a senior medical oncologist at Princess Margaret Cancer Center and holds the BMO chair in precision genomics. She is also a professor of medicine at the University of Toronto. And at Princess Margaret, she wears many hats. She is the director of the Phase 1 program. She is co-director of the Brass Family Drug Development Program and is the clinical lead for the Tumor Immunotherapy Program at Princess Margaret Cancer Center. Lillian's major research focus is in the area of new anti-cancer drug development, particularly with respect to Phase 1 trials and head and neck malignancies. In her active research in early phase clinical trials, she has been leading genomics initiatives in immuno-oncology trials at Princess Margaret Cancer Center. Together, the three programs of drug development, cancer genomics, and tumor immunotherapy form a triad of synergy that supports the institution's core vision to deliver precision cancer medicine. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you, Meaghan.
All right, now let's set the stage for today's conversation about data science and artificial intelligence. So Ben, I'm going to ask you to help us establish some terms for the discussion today. What is data science, and what does data science mean in the context of cancer research and care?
Thanks, Meaghan. Actually, you introduced those topics very well in your introduction. So data science uses advanced computing infrastructure and sophisticated computer algorithms to analyze large volume of data, as you already mentioned, in order to identify complex patterns in the data, derive meaningful information from the data, as well as developing predictive models. So in the context of cancer research and cancer care, data science plays an important role in the way we collect and analyze data generated during the patient's journey and enable us to develop new tools to improve cancer care. And those tools can take many forms, from the optimization of the scheduling system, as well as systems to match patients to the most beneficial therapy based on complex genomic information, for instance.
Awesome. Now, for those of you in the audience who may not know, what about artificial intelligence and machine learning? And why should patients care about these concepts in the world of cancer care and research?
So there is a little bit of controversy regarding the actual definition of artificial intelligence and data science and machine learning. So I'll give you some formal definition, and I'll tell you what most people mean actually by artificial intelligence or AI. So AI is actually a broad set of computational techniques meant to accomplish tasks that require a certain level of intelligence. And sometimes those tasks could be very, very trivial, such as applying predetermined rules to detect abnormality in blood test results, for instance. But sometimes those tasks could be much more complex, such as detecting a tumor and preparing a radiation therapy plan automatically. So machine learning is actually a tool that AI is using to learn from massive amount of data and nicely complement the statistical approaches that we've been using for the last probably more than 100 years now. So machine learning is really a tool and a subset of AI. But those are formal definitions. Usually what people mean by AI is deep learning. So deep learning is this new set of methods that allow us to develop those neural networks that kind of mimic the human brains to some extent. And those neural networks have extraordinary capacity to accomplish tasks that are thought to be very human-specific and very hard for computers, such as speech recognition or self-driving cars, for instance. And so
Wow.
why do people need to care about those concepts? Is because it's really the convergence of the technology on the computer side as well as the research side that makes those concepts really, really practical. We can do things that we were not able to do before because of the power of computers and because of the power of the algorithm. So it's really opened new doors for the application of those technologies in cancer care.
Yeah, you can imagine how, given all of the data that would be involved in medical care and research, how powerful it is that we can actually use all this data, to drive forward our understanding. I'm going to put the next question over to you, Linda. How have data science and AI evolved since you started your career in research?
I know, unmute first, right? AI. Ouch, that hurts. I started my PhD in the 1980s. Hair was curly and bushy and there was no AI. Basically, it is now, and it is exciting. And we integrate it now into every step of our research. I can't imagine anymore how we didn't have it as part of our toolbox from the past. But remember, with research, every incremental step enables us to get to where we are today. So in the 1980s, we were just learning about how DNA was encoded. So it's come a long, long way. And now we can converge all of this information into one.
Yeah, I think we all think about that. Even with Google, you can't imagine a world before you could actually search things on Google, right? So it makes sense that it would be commonplace now when it was just, science fiction and Star Trek 30 years ago. Lillian, I'm going to hand the next question over to you. Recently, we had a family generously commit $1.5 million towards supporting your program in this area. Can you tell us how gifts like this are enabling your work in artificial intelligence? How is AI impacting really your clinical practice and research?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to express our sincere gratitude for the donation, because every penny counts, and certainly that kind of support is instrumental to really bring an important concept such as AI to the patients. As a clinician, obviously there's always the personal touch, because patients are individuals. We will give them our personal, feelings in terms of opinions, etc. But we cannot do everything. We're humans, we're mortals. So there are certain aspects of cancer care and cancer research that we will need to rely on computers and a power that is able to compute things much more powerful than a human brain. So I think for us to have that kind of support to develop AI in the clinic is really important. And in terms of clinical care, we need to make sure whatever the machine does has no false positive and no false negative, because we would not want to misdiagnose anything. And we certainly do not want to miss something that is cancerous. So I think that process of allowing us to bring AI from research to the bedside and make sure it's reliable requires a lot of effort from researchers such as Ben and Linda, et cetera. And I think this kind of funding will allow us to do that.
Just awesome. It's very exciting. So, I think one of the areas that we've talked about is how data science is helping us make better decisions, both in the predictive sense and really to drive personalized cancer care. Ben, how are we using data science and machine learning to help predict and ultimately improve outcomes for cancer patients?
Yeah, so I would like to kind of follow up on what Linda and Lillian said. The amount of data we generate today is orders of magnitude higher than what we've seen in the last decade. So for humans to integrate all those data becomes extremely difficult. And that's what Lillian is saying. Like we need a personal touch with the patient. Human will always be the last to take the decision, but the integration of data, the extraction of the patterns, the extraction of the information, that has to rely on computers now. Just too much data, which is a good thing, but there is just too much data to integrate. So the way we use it at Princess Margaret is extremely diverse. As I already mentioned, we use it to optimize the operations of the hospital, such as scheduling the access to very expensive machines, such as scanners, radiological scanners. We also use it to try to better understand the genomic makeup of tumors and how does that help us decide what's the right therapy for the patients. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 mutations. We're talking about much more complex data nowadays. So we use machine learning and data science that way. We also try to use those techniques to also streamline the patient experience. How do we better communicate with the patient? So for instance, a recent initiative, Smart Cancer Care, is helping us shape how we are going to interact with the patient and deliver care remotely. And how do we collect data about that interaction so we can improve it over time? So data collection is very, very important. That's where data science and AI can actually help collect better data so we can do better data science and AI in the future. So it's a bit of a virtual circle that we are trying to install. So data science and AI is really used in multiple types of projects at Princess Margaret.
Wonderful. And you're talking about obviously data collection being such a critical part of that. Being Canada's most comprehensive cancer center, obviously we have access to exceptionally large amounts of data. So Linda, how does the data that your team has access to at the Princess Margaret help you conduct research and inform decisions?
Yeah, like I said, I can't imagine living without it anymore. Basically, it's integrated into every part of a research program. So you can imagine with research, as soon as you get a result, you can go in 10 different directions. And how basically a working principle of being a researcher at Princess Margaret is that we focus our next step of research on that which is most going to impact patient diagnosis and treatment. And so by having this fantastic data set of patients and their genomics and their treatment and their outcome and a million other parameters, we can actually basically conduct experiments in silico, if you will, using the data to help guide our next decision and our next direction towards patient care, as opposed to anything else. What's going to maximize our impact? Well, this is a very important tool. I guess examples.
That's wonderful. I want to lean into your role, Linda, as UHN's Director of Office Research Trainees, and talking about future scientists and researchers that are coming in. Are they equipped with these skills? And can you talk about the advantages the next generations of scientists have as it relates to the abundance of data available to them and how they might use this to further accelerate their work?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Ben, Lillian, and I work together as part of a research team where we spend a lot of time making sure that the trainees are aware that they basically cannot go forward in science research without these skill sets. Whether they actually do the compute part of the analysis directly, or whether they even just learn the concepts and the nomenclature, the language of the business of AI enables them then to accelerate their research, and they're already doing that. Part of the Office of Research Trainees, we're running workshops on data mining, data analysis, with our trainees actually teaching each other peer-to-peer, and we also bring in external experts to bring knowledge to our trainees, including some companies actually called that specialize in this kind of teaching, like the Coding Hive or whatever. But a lot of Ben's trainees, for example, are teaching my trainees, and it's very much a collaborative, multidisciplinary. We're all sort of A-type personalities doing well at whatever we do, but together we are synergistic. And
so it sounds like it's core curriculum now. You got to have it: reading, writing, and big data. That's wonderful. So I'm going to switch over to you, Lillian. As we are moving forward with AI and data science platforms, how are we building confidence and trust with patients? Have you had feedback from patients on the use of big data and AI affecting their patient care?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I was listening to you and Linda, I'm just thinking back, if we now bring up to our trainees and say, do you know like VHS or beta? And they're like, what is that, right? This is like, things move so fast. They've probably never even seen a video machine before. And now things just move so fast. So I think our patients are very savvy. Our patients are very up to date. And, for example, the donation from the family that you had mentioned earlier, they're like, we need to move AI forward to care. We need to move forward to, the bedside. So I think truly our patients are very well informed, and they're the ones that remind us every day, the wheel needs to move. The wheel cannot stop here. We need to keep learning and progressing. And I think it is likely that not in the long from now future, we're going to have AI in part of our regular day-to-day practice. Obviously, as I said, it's important that whatever we bring to the practice has to be accurate, because obviously we're managing people's lives. And I think this is the progress we need to make to get us to the point where AI is in our daily life, in our care of our patients.
Awesome. So, I'm going to shift a little bit into how collaboration and partnerships are driving innovation. I think, Linda, you sort of teed us off there with some of the education partners that you have. With respect to big data, are there other diseases where researchers are doing this really well, and how are we learning from that? So, Linda, I'm going to pass that question to you.
Yeah, this would probably be better handled by Ben, but
okay. Maybe you'll tee us off, Linda, and then I'll pass it over to Ben to topspin.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I see that population-based data analysis. So I think a lot of donors will know that I think it was Iceland that basically started collecting data on everybody in their population, and then they could basically mine that and follow on which people ended up with which diseases and which didn't, and why, and what caused it, from environmental, genetic, etc. So I think that was kind of a beginning of how we could see how big data could make an impact, population-based data. Ben, what do you think?
It's actually a nice segue to data sharing. In my book, there are two extremes. One is what you said, the population-based studies, where government are in a position to actually collect data on a very large amount of people and learn at a population level what's happening. And the other extreme are the rare diseases, where it's very hard to find enough cases to efficiently learn and efficiently apply big data and AI. And so what people have done then is to create consortiums that are really worldwide to put all the data they have together. And they're also very efficient because they broke all the obstacles of data sharing to really come together and make the best of it. And so those two extreme examples are basically telling you something. You need data. It always starts with data. And I don't know if you've heard researchers or scientists, they often say, oh, AI is data hungry. We need a lot of data to feed those algorithms. And that's probably because our algorithms are not as sophisticated as the human brains right now. Sometimes we learn things by just looking at it a few times. For machine learning and AI to work, we really need a lot of data to train those algorithms. And that's really where sharing the data is super important. Putting together those collaborative networks is really, really crucial. And I would argue that sometimes it's very easy to collect large amount of data. If you look at self-driving cars, they take videos of the way people drive all the time. So you just need a million other new videos, you just get it the day after. Speech recognition is the same thing. We use speech recognition all the time, so it's very easy to collect data. For cancer, it's much, much more complicated. Sometimes those are rare diseases. Sometimes the samples are hard or even painful to collect for the patients. So we really kind of limited in the way we collect the data. So if we don't share, we probably never really get the models good enough because we don't really have the data that's high quality. And I would argue that this is not just about data. Data is the beginning. But when you create algorithm or you create predictive models, especially if you're in academia, share those with the community so people can try those in their own institutions, people can improve them, people can showcase maybe their limitations. As Lillian said, we're dealing with patients here. We really have to be super, super sure about the accuracy and the robustness of the models. The only way to do so is to be really transparent about what we do so that as a community, we can build upon each other's work.
And I imagine being Princess Margaret, being such a global institution, we probably have a lot of data sharing partnerships around the world. Can you comment on some of those that you think are really accelerating the work we're doing at Princess Margaret?
Yes, so that's a very good point. So data sharing is also Princess Margaret being the beacon of transparent and reproducible research. So we share data. We share our code. So a lot of the publications within the Institute, we share absolutely everything. And it's such a joy to see other people to pay attention to what we do, but also improve them, build upon this. So Princess Margaret is really at this unique position where we have the luxury of having high quality data and that we try to share responsibly and safely those data as much as possible, as well as other research deliverables, those models and those computer codes, so that we help the community at large.
Brilliant, brilliant. Lillian, can you talk a little bit about some of the collaborations that Princess Margaret is involved in the private sector that we're undertaking to accelerate research?
Yeah, I will. And I also want to highlight a couple of non-private sector that is, I think, important for data sharing. In the private sector, we obviously have a lot of clinical trials. We have a lot of pharmaceutical partners that we work with. And I think there's a lot of interest to look at, for example, clinical trial data that have either been published or ongoing. Is there any way we can mine that data to learn beyond just that trial that is already completed, whether it's positive or negative? Data are precious. You cannot just, put it aside when you're finished. You need to reuse it. You need to recycle it and learn from it. So, for example, Ben and I are working on a project where we're trying to look at CAT scans of patients on immunotherapy to see if even after the first scan, we can predict which patients will do really well on the immunotherapy versus ones that will not respond to immunotherapy. So that kind of prediction probably would need something like AI to help, because if I look at a CAT scan, I don't see the difference between somebody who's going to respond versus somebody who ultimately will not respond. To have that vision, far ahead, to be able to do that, likely need a machine and a computer to help us. But just want to highlight a couple of other global initiatives or national and international initiatives. Princess Margaret is part of the American Association of Cancer Research Genie project, which is a huge international data sharing project. My colleague, Dr. Philip Bedard, is actually the lead for this globally, of multiple cancer centers around the world, where we are sharing data to learn exactly, about these rare diseases that Ben was talking about. Another exciting initiative, we're all involved in the Terra Fox Marathon of Hope, which is a pan-Canadian initiative where Princess Margaret, British Columbia, and Montreal are the 3 founding sites to start, sharing our precision medicine initiatives and data. I think that's going to be something you will see in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of interesting results that will emerge from this data sharing initiative.
That's very exciting. It sounds like, just like data is moving so fast and this whole area of science, how do you think partnerships and collaborations will evolve over time? What do data partnerships look like 10 years from now?
I presume that is for me. I think, it is going to be a natural aspect of research, because, as I said, data used to be siloed. Data are in like little silos everywhere. And to us, that was the norm. And I think if you look ahead, already now, those silos are being broken. They are no longer tolerated to have your own data, you close it and you don't share it. In fact, some journals won't even accept your paper if you do not share your data or deposit it. So I think future looking, we will have a much more exciting data sharing field of knowledge that works in academia as well as in non-academics in the pharmaceutical areas. Hopefully that's going to be broadening our horizons a lot more.
Awesome. Well, let's continue, stay in the future there. Let's talk about how innovation and data science and AI are going to reshape the future of patient care. So this question, Linda, I'm going to hand to you. What are some of the global trends in AI or machine learning that you're most excited about, that you think can really transform the patient journey at Princess Margaret? You're on mute, my friend.
And even my computer AI told me. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be impactful at multiple levels. Obviously, with precision medicine, diagnosis and treatment, I mean, that's no-brainer. I think the radiomics that Lillian spoke about, I'm using some of that technology, using AI to better analyze images. And, us mere mortals, we've only got the 2 eyeballs in our head. And when you can train a computer to visualize and distinguish different features of an image in ways that you just can't even imagine, you can double check it. You can see what's working. So it's not like it's this mystery thing. Ultimately, you can learn from it yourself. But to see it have that impact and that resolution and that speed, it's just data analysis at the level of image analysis, for example, is just completely already, I see revolutionary changes. And that's just from my basic research perspective. But again, also on the therapeutic side, the exploration of chemical space. We're just developing new therapeutic strategies to target MYC and work with statins in combination. And before we would be limited to a library of chemicals, like if you were going to the library, you'd have a shelf of books. Instead, we have basically all the books in all the world to interrogate, and that would be all the chemicals and all the small molecules, all the potential therapeutics that we could potentially then address, whether they're the ones that are working for our particular question. So it's just vast and wonderful at every level, accelerating our results and our impact.
Awesome. Lillian, this question's for you. Thinking in the healthcare workforce space, how do you see the healthcare workforce changing with all of the advancements in AI and machine learning? How is this going to impact how healthcare is delivered?
Yeah, I mean, as a future-looking sort of perspective, I think it will help us get patients diagnosed with cancer earlier, I hope. I hope, for example, if you have a mole on your arm, there will be an AI app or appliance that say you put your phone over it. It will tell you exactly, based on all the AI intelligence, that the chance of this mole being benign or malignant is XY%. And it may say, it's okay, this is just an ordinary sun, age spot, versus this is a very high chance to be a melanoma. You need to go see a doctor now, so that patients will seek attention earlier and not just, wait and wait and wait. So I'm hoping that this will bring awareness. And this is where I mentioned the false positive and false negative need to be very, very minimal, if not zero, because we do not want people not to go to their doctor if they have a malignant cancer, or go to a doctor for every mole that they see, right? So I think it will hopefully make cancer care a lot more efficient, and it will also cut down a lot of work that are, could be machine performed rather than human performed, to make care much more expedited and efficient. That's sort of my hope for where AI would take us.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting.
If I may say something about
yes,
this,
please.
There was this great citation from Curtis Langloss saying, AI won't replace radiologists, but radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't. So at the end of the day, it's not a question of whether AI is going to replace the doctor, but it's how AI will interact with the doctors, or how the doctors will interact with AI to deliver better care. So I think it fit very well in that context.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I don't think it would be a 2021 webinar if we didn't talk about COVID-19. So Ben, I got a question for you. In response to COVID-19 crisis, accelerations in technology in particular, and breakthrough vaccines, this has all been happening in record time. How is data and machine learning and artificial intelligence, do you think we can expect to see the same rapid pace in cancer research going forward?
So yeah, you're right. So COVID hit us very hard, and that's true for the scientific community as well. But what it did too is really to distill a sense of urgency. So suddenly people were all focusing on the same problem, and they knew they had to address that problem in record time, like within a year at most, right? And so what we've seen is an explosion, literally an explosion of papers and data and algorithms being shared worldwide. There were no boundaries anymore, no borders for science. So in a way, it's a huge success. It's too bad it has been brought for somewhat the wrong reason. I wish without a pandemic, we could have done the same, right? But no, we have to learn from this. And what it taught us really is that we can share and speed up research responsibly and safely. And all the obstacles that we currently have to share data, the risk-averse mindset that a lot of the healthcare system impose is actually could be fairly harmful. We would not have been able to create a vaccine or create those new tools or rapid testing if we were not able to share the data and the science very, very quickly. So now your question is, how do we learn from this so that cancer research could be done at such a large scale and so fast? And I think that's exactly it. Like, we are going to basically challenge the current system, challenge the status quo, and say, if we did it for COVID, we should be able to do it in many research fields, including cancer research. So now it's up to us that hopefully, when the pandemic is behind us and everybody gets vaccinated, let's not settle. Let's really question the system and improve it so that we can really speed up research.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I'm going to ask you each a question that has a bit of retrospective to it and then prospective. So retrospectively, what do you see as one of the biggest breakthroughs that you've seen as a result of data science and artificial intelligence? And then looking prospectively, what excites you most about the possibilities of AI in the future? So Linda, why don't I start with you?
Yes, thanks, Meaghan. Oh, again? No, good.
You're on.
Thanks, Meaghan. I'm going to talk about, we're just put out a call for new scientists in this space, because we realize how important AI and data science is. And I have to say that interviewing the future scientists really brought home, wow, what added space we can explore and in new ways. And, there's nothing like a young scientist who basically has no fear, and it's the sky's the limit, and they know no other way to go forward except collaboratively. And there, I must say, we had a high level of caliber of applicants from all over the world. And it was not very satisfying to see these folks from Boston, from all over the world, want to join Princess Margaret. And I think the reason is because we're a strong research environment. We have already established fantastic multidisciplinary programs, basic scientists working with clinicians, computational, with imaging. I mean, we just don't know. I think it's because we're Canadian, and we just don't know any other way to be except collaborative. And we attract that kind of mind, and it's exponential. It's more than the sum of the parts, which is really, really exciting.
That is very exciting. Lillian, how about you? What's the biggest breakthrough you've seen, and what excites you about the possibilities of the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest breakthrough in terms of data science is really, the precision medicine era, where we now know one cancer is not one cancer. Every cancer is thousands of subtypes of cancer, because molecularly they are so different. And to be able to bring that data together and learn from that and personalize treatment in a precise way. So for example, there are data sets, I mentioned Genie, we also have a very large repository of data of our own molecular profiling initiatives. We share it with others. I think that has changed the whole practice of cancer in the last decade. And I think moving forward, the forward vision is that we would actually be not just using genomics, which has been, I think, in the prime stage for the last few years, but we would be using multi-omics. So not just genomics, but also other aspects of the nucleic acids, RNA. We've mentioned radiomics, even microbiome was, growing in terms of bacteria in their bowels, in their gut. It would all help us understand how a patient responds to treatment and how to give them the best treatment. That's, I think, hopefully going to give us a complete diagnosis, not just based on histology or molecular profiling.
Oh, the complexity of it's just so exciting. It's very, very cool. Ben, last but not least.
It's hard to disagree with Linda and Lillian. I think precision oncology is really kind of the most exciting aspect of it. What I think will change is that we will go from one cancer to multiple subtypes of cancer to truly personalized predictions. And what I mean by that is, as Lillian said, every patient is actually unique. Every patient tumor is unique in many aspects. So even so, relationships, predictive relationship will be the same across multiple patients. So a cancer cell with a given gene is more likely to respond to that therapy. The problem is that in tumors, you have many different cancer cell populations that may respond differently to therapy. So basically, at the end of the day, even clinical trials as we conceive them today might be a challenge, because it's hard to test one therapy across all patients. We probably end up with a system where every patient will receive a very personalized combination of therapies that will target specifically the tumor they have, and that tumor is by definition unique. So how do we handle this? And I think that's where AI and data science will play a huge role. We'll have basically all those personalized predictions, and we're going to have to assess the quality of the whole system. The other aspect that I found fascinating too is that, as we said multiple times, AI is not going to replace doctors, but hopefully they will allow doctors to spend time on what is most important for them. Whether it's spending time with the patient to collect more information, a way that AI will probably never be able to do, or to think of really out of the box, maybe in ways that algorithms are not capable to. And AI will free them from basic tasks such as contouring tumors on radiological images or reading charts from the whole history of patient. Maybe that's where AI will be the most useful. And the last part, which is almost philosophical, it's fascinating to see how we think what we do is very human and very specific to us. And then we realize that a machine can do it. And then we basically decide that, oh, that was not actually very human after all, right? And then we go the next step and say, oh, I'm sure that the machine will be very bad at this. And then again, we create an algorithm, we create a robot that can do it and say, oh no, finally, at the end of the day, human is way more than this, way more than this. So basically what AI is doing is kind of pushing the limits of what we consider is to be a human. And that's kind of fascinating to see this. Like in the 50s, we thought that having a conversation with a machine, with a human, would be very kind of sign of intelligence. And now we realize that you go on the internet and sometimes you talk to a machine and you're not even aware it's a machine. They can mimic humans very well. So this is continuously evolving, and it's very fascinating to watch.
That is fascinating. That's very fascinating, and a great way to end this section of the show today. We're going to move into a rapid fire question just to get to know our scientists a little bit more personally, and then we're going to open it up to Slido questions. So just a reminder to everyone who's watching: if you'd like to ask our scientists a question, please click on the Slido link below the screen and add your questions, and we're going to facilitate those across the scientists in just a moment. So Linda, I'm going to start with you. I got 4 rapid fire questions. We'll take you off mute. First one, what's your favorite book?
Sadly, manuscripts and science.
It's not sad. It's all good. I love your work.
My retirement, okay?
All right. Okay, first place you'll travel when it's safe to do so.
Really?
Beautiful. One subject you are not very good in at school.
Oh, that's art.
And last but not least, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, to cure cancer, of course.
There you go. You can't all answer the same on that one. Next one, Ben. What was your first paying job?
Paid job. Oh, I was actually working in a pharmacy. I was putting little pills in trays so that patient will receive the right medication. Thankfully, people checked after me.
That's great. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Maybe Thai. I love Thai.
Nice. What's your hidden talent?
Ooh. You know what? I tend to love things that I'm very bad at. And I really consider it as either a superpower or a talent. But it takes something to enjoy things where you're not really, really good at. So I'll take
What
that.
are you really bad at then, Ben?
Oh, I love to play field hockey, but I was so bad at it. But I loved it.
That's good. And last but not least, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, another superpower then. I think travel through time. That would be super cool. Nice. You can fix a few mistakes, learn a bit more about humanity in general.
Okay. And last, over to you, Lillian. Favorite musical artist or band?
Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think. Leonard Cohen.
Nice. Advice you'd give your 20-year-old self?
Do this again.
Nice. Next one is dinner with one person, dead or alive. Who would it be?
My husband.
All right, beautiful. Probably don't see him too much. That's the point. And then the last one, of course, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I like to read minds.
Nice. Very great. Okay, we are going to open it up to our guests, the questions from our viewers. So we'll bring the Slido screen up. And what I'll do is I'll offer it out to any of our panelists to answer. So the first one is, what kind of multivariate analytical techniques have you applied for cancer research? During my course in university, we used PCA and factor analysis to understand benign and malignant tumors. So maybe Ben, I'll pass this over to you.
It's a good question, but it's a tough one because the portfolio of tools is just gigantic. Like every single day, there is a new method that you would like to start. It's like asking a biologist, what's your favorite gene? And even if they have an answer to that one, like Linda and me probably, then you know what, that gene has so many variations and so many ways that the gene is being regulated. So it's endless. So quick answer to you, I'm a big fan of random forest. Deep neural networks is definitely the thing that we use a lot in the lab right now. And never, never underestimate the power of a very simple yet robust linear regression.
There you go. Okay, next one up is given machine learning accuracy depends on the data sets used to train the algorithms, how might you minimize the inherent bias in many data sets when using AI in our health systems? For example, many data sets use homogeneous populations that don't include marginalized or indigenous communities. So who would like to take that one on?
I can
I
speak.
can do that. No, you go first. Go first.
We'll start with Lillian and then we'll go to Linda.
Right.
Okay. I think this is a very thoughtful question, and I think this is a very important point if we start thinking about big data, and that's something we constantly think about as we're planning the Marathon of Hope that I mentioned earlier, that when you have big data, you still need to make sure you don't miss important segments of the population. For example, those who are underserved. So I think it's very important when you create those data sets, you actually deliberately make sure those populations are included, and really reaching out to those populations to include them in the data set is to me a very challenging but very important task. Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this area myself. And getting back to what Ben said, you can never have enough data. So right now, whatever data we have, we use. And now as we're getting more and more data, then we can subdivide, let's say on the basis of ancestry, for example. And then you start to do that. And then what do you find out? Well, you might have a subset of patients of a certain ancestry and a certain disease, but you don't have the normal equivalent, for example. And so now you have to build another database of that ancestry in that normal subtype. So if it was acute myelogenous leukemia, you'd want to do it in normal myeloid cells, like white blood cells. It's fascinating how the more we learn, the more hungry we are to learn more. And so this is a hot area of research. This question is right on bang on, right at the front line.
I understand also that just given where our research center is located, being Toronto, being one of the most multicultural cities in the world, this is a really powerful opportunity we have in Toronto because we don't have a homogeneous population, which is much to the strength of our research as well. Is that true, Linda?
Yes, absolutely. And also because we're a one-payer health system with all comers, and that I think also augments, I guess, the strength of our Princess Margaret. I know in the States, basically, that's a mess, and that shame on them.
So
right.
if I can I follow on that
Please.
question, because I think it's so fundamental. So at the population level, there is so much more we can do. Obviously, patient populations are often biased. But even if you take an active role and you try to do your best to touch all the subpopulations, there will always be biases in data sets that are unseen, that are hidden in the data. And that's really where sharing is important. If you train your model on your population and you ship the model to somebody else, and they try it in their own population, it could be another hospital, another country, and it doesn't work, then you start wondering why is that? What is so different in my data set that makes it not working in the other data set? If you don't share, you'll never see those biases. So again, it's really a call for open science and more sharing in general.
Fascinating. Our next question. So much like other scientific endeavors, it takes a long time to develop AI that can be trusted by care providers when making decisions. How do you determine the level of accuracy that you expect from algorithms before you're comfortable putting them forward to use in a clinical setting? So maybe Lillian, shall we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a couple of times during today's hour that to me, that's a very important point because, this is a disease that is very serious and we cannot miss or underdiagnose it. So I think for me, I would need to see obviously data on data. So I would need to make sure there is good beta and alpha testing to make sure I am aware of the accuracies and the false positive, false negative rate. And I think, probably I would make sure I would start off with diseases that I feel that I would be able to let AI test first and then move forward to ones that I would do after I have some confidence. But I think this is an important point, that QA is very important for this kind of usage of machine learning.
Okay, next question. How do your research findings get to individual oncologists and influence cancer treatment for Princess Margaret patients? Who'd like to take a lead on that one?
Well, I'm happy to take that one on, because as a basic research scientist, for years, we would work on cell lines in our labs in our own little corner, often working on rodent-derived cell lines and all the rest of it. And now everything's changed, and we work highly collaboratively right from the beginning with our clinical colleagues. So, for example, we have statins, cholesterol control agents we've shown, have anti-cancer properties. Particularly, the epidemiology said men who had decreased risk of prostate cancer. So we immediately worked with our prostate cancer team, and together grew that to a clinical trial, and we're doing that again. So it's more working with our clinical scientists now along the way. So we're really focusing our research more precisely at what is required at the front line. And so it's just augmented dramatically, and then it just flies to the clinic because we've been working together right from the get-go.
It's not so much of a bridge because it's been a partnership the whole way.
Very well.
And so in our case, we also have an interesting project, and it's kind of connected to Lillian's previous answer. How do we make sure that the AI is good quality or good enough for clinical application? And so what we try to do is to have those shadow trials where AI is operating in parallel with the doctors. And the doctors either don't see AI or don't take into account the AI predictions in their decision. But over time, they kind of learn how AI is behaving in certain situations and get to trust it or get to understand that it's not good enough, right? And so we have this project where we try to leverage a lot of data to match patient to clinical trials. And we are going to set up a system where clinicians will see that recommendation, but it's just going to be that. It's going to be a recommendation, and they have to ignore it for their decision. But over time, they will learn what kind of evidence AI is bringing forward, what kind of decision AI is taking. So retrospectively, we can see how well it does. And I think it's really building that trust over time, not putting AI in command, but really putting AI in the back seat and see how it behaves over a certain period of time. That's probably a good way to get those tools to the clinic in a safe and responsible way.
Oh, that's very interesting. So it's not that it's making the decision, but rather just kind of playing an advisor. And you can choose to listen to that advisor or not, and then test whether it was right or not. That's great.
Even a weak advisor at the beginning, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Our next question. So we've talked today, I think, a lot about access to data as an important factor in accelerating discoveries in research. What do you believe are some of the other important external factors that make it easier to accelerate discoveries in research? So maybe Linda, Lillian, I'll have you start on that one.
I think funding is an external factor that obviously thank goodness we have the foundation that is.
Oh, thank goodness we have our donors, Lillian.
Thank goodness we have the donors. So, I mean, obviously time, we need to make sure that we can devote a lot of time also in thinking. And I think that's something that I think is very important, that our scientists have time to think and be able to sort of innovate. To me, money is a factor, but time is also a big factor in terms of making sure, and obviously collaboration, that people are willing to break their silos and work together. And I think that culture has changed. So I think that is a good thing.
Ben, Linda, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think if you want to get anything done in life, you have to put money behind it. So I think the funding is definitely, especially now with COVID. The pressure on government and philanthropic fundraising is just really collapsed the system that we have been relying on. And so right now the funding is very tight, and that's important. It's important because we don't want to lose our next generation of scientists. It's important because we need the funding actually to, purchase reagents and all the rest. And also to make sure that we've got the team that we need, whatever it might be, in whichever direction we need to go. And so funding.
Yeah. And boy, I mean, on the other side of the last year with COVID, we have seen that how much can be done when funding isn't a roadblock. It's pretty exceptional. It's very true. So I'm just looking at the time. I'm going to have us follow up with the last two questions. We'll follow up with the question asker offline directly. But I do really want to stop and just thank our three panelists for joining us today. Linda, Lillian, Ben, extraordinary conversation, fascinating topic. Your passion and energy is just is wonderful, even through Zoom. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today about this really important topic. And we absolutely cannot wait to see what the future holds for our research teams with big data to fuel discovery and transform healthcare. All right. So this session concludes our high touch, high tech webinar series. All of our sessions are posted on our YouTube channel and you're free to watch them at any time. But we do hope that you will join us for our next webinar series launching this summer, where we will explore the global impact of the Princess Margaret. We know that cancer knows no boundaries, and this is why the global reach of the Princess Margaret is so important. As one of the top 5 cancer research centers in the world, we are home to over 300 of the world's best cancer researchers, connected to a vast global network with over 500 research collaborations in 107 countries. And we just can't wait to share with you the global impact of the Princess Margaret in our next webinar series. So until then, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe and be well.